And welcome back to another episode of the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay, and whether you're outside grilling, mowing the lawn, changing dirty diapers, or maybe you finally got a moment to sit back, relax, whatever it is, listen to your favorite podcast. Thank you for joining me today right here. I'm joined by a really special guest who has been making a significant impact in the world of pediatric and perinatal chiropractic care. Joining me today is Dr. Mariah, and I'm gonna butcher this because I should have asked how to pronounce it before we hit record, but I didn't. I'm gonna give it a shot. I've been practicing it in my head. Wenglowski.
That was perfect.
Yes.
That could not have been better.
Yes. You are a dedicated chiropractor who specializes in helping families navigate wellness from pregnancy through infancy and beyond. And Dr. Mariah, you earned your doctorate of chiropractic from Life University in Marietta, Georgia, where you dove deeply into your passion for pediatric and perinatal care. You're board certified by the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners, a member of the International Chiropractic Pediatric Association, the ICPA, Webster Technique certified. We're going to jump into that because I have no clue what that is. And an advanced proficient in torque release technique as well. Also, I have no clue what that is. Currently, you're working towards your certification by the Academy of Council of Chiropractic Pediatric to further specialize in pediatric and perinatal care. That's still in the works, correct?
Correct. Yep, in the works. Almost there.
Perfect. So far so good. Your personal health journey, overcoming postural orthostatic POTS.
Yeah.
I can't say that T word through chiropractic care. Has really fueled your mission to empower families with the knowledge about the nervous system, anatomy, and wellness choices. You believe in the transformative potential of quality chiropractic care, especially during pregnancy and early childhood. Outside of your professional pursuits, you enjoy staying active, walking your sweet dog Betsy, exploring the natural beauty of Seattle, which it has so much to offer, with your husband, and cheering on the Seattle Seawolves rugby team. I didn't even know Seattle had a rugby team, and I've been in Washington my whole life, and I didn't know there was a rugby team.
Not many do, but there is, in fact.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled to have you on the show today to share your insights, experiences. So without further ado, officially welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And it's always exciting to talk to a chiropractor, a doctor, someone who focuses on wellness and whatnot, because it's something that I don't get to talk to a lot of chiropractors. I think you're the very first chiropractic doctor that I've had on the Young Dad podcast, especially, and then when you go into it specifically, the perinatal early childhood care. And for our listeners that don't know what it is, what is perinatal care?
So perinatal care is the mother and all-encompassing, right? So that entails preconception, prenatal, and postnatal too. A lot of times, right, mom carries the baby for 9-10 months, depending on the length of time till babe's all cooked. And then baby's here, everybody's really excited. And then mom's kind of put on the back burner, right? Because it's a brand new life in our world. So it's really important to us that we are also still taking care of mom through the postpartum period too, because so many changes are happening mentally, physically, spiritually. So perinatal is just all encompassing.
Gotcha. And it's like a form of chiropractic care, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me dive into a little bit of the Webster technique and kind of explain what that looks like.
Okay.
So the Webster technique is specific chiropractic care for pregnant mothers, right? However, we do start to incorporate that technique preconception wise too, because what it does is creates a really healthy environment for the fetus. Ultimately, it can of course get mom out of some super common pregnancy pains, but it really aligns the pelvis in a way that the uterus is aligned and the fetus can grow optimally. So there's 6 components that we do as chiropractors. We are looking at the front of the pelvis and the back of the pelvis, right? So the back of the pelvis, we're making sure that sacrum, that bottom part of your spine, is nice and aligned. We're loosening up some tissues back there with the piriformis muscles and some ligaments that run from the sacrum to the sit bones as well. We focus on the round ligaments on the front, which are those ligaments that only grow in pregnancy, which is interesting, and as well as the psoas muscle and pubic alignment. So with all of those 6 components nice and aligned, the baby has a really, really good chance of 1, getting in a really good position for birth, but 2, just growing optimally, because we're not we're not changing anything with the baby. We are just creating space in the mom's pelvis for the baby to grow optimally. So it's important for us to start that when moms come into us preconception. It's important for us to start that then, so that their body has the best opportunity to grow a baby. And then further, once they have the baby, of course, we're checking similar things for a little bit there. But yeah, we just transition them really beautifully into kind of the normal techniques that we use.
Very cool. That's really interesting. So basically, what it is, as if I'm hearing that as a man brain and I'm explaining that to the other men of the podcast, basically what you do is you just create more of an environment through that to make it so the baby has more room to grow or a better room to grow. And so when it's time for birth, they can literally just slide on out into the world. It's just like a woohoo!
That is the goal.
There's less
Yeah.
complications. I assume it probably helps that there's less tearing, less risk of having to have a C-section, or a higher likelihood of a vaginal birth with less tearing.
Absolutely.
It's more comfortable. Maybe less medications need to be used and whatnot, so it's easier for dilation and things like that too. Correct?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, you nailed it. So, of course, the alignment piece is so important for birth, right? That exit canal needs to be nice and aligned for one, baby to work with the mom, but two, when we have the pelvis nice and aligned, it removes that interference from the nerve roots that exit out of the spine, which in a sense control how the nervous system functions, right? So if the nerve roots in the pelvic area there's an interference going on, right? It makes it really hard for the brain and body to communicate. And something as super important as birth, your brain and your body need to be working together. Does that make sense? So the alignment piece is so important.
So is that where, like, with this nervous system that you're talking, with the nervous system, not this nervous system, but the nervous system, there's one nervous system, is that kind of where the epidural would normally play that piece of it then to help those two systems communicate? If I'm thinking, because you said lower back, that nervous system, that's where it's located. So is that kind of right thinking there? Like, this helps maybe almost alleviate the need for that as well.
Honestly, okay, that's a fantastic question. So the nervous system starts right when the spine starts, right when it exits into the spine. So it's actually the full spine. That's what we do as chiropractors. A lot of people are like, alignment posture, yes, great, beautiful, love it. But our main job is to remove the interferences that could come from these misalignments in the nervous system in the whole spine. So epidural wise, I'll be honest with you, I had a really beautiful birth story a couple of days ago where a mom just went and did it. She had no medication, never really intended on it. She's been seeing us her whole entire pregnancy, and everything went so beautifully. She pushed for only a handful of minutes and everything was fantastic. Of course, there's less discomfort when we're seeing moms before pregnancy because they are aligned and their nervous system's able to communicate with their brain. There's obviously no guarantees.
Yeah.
However, epidural wise, it's always a choice. Does it make sense? It's always a choice regardless in kind of what there's some moms that come in, they're like, I don't actually want to have the conversation at all. I'm doing an epidural. Fine, let's get you nice and aligned. Let's get your nervous system still functioning because regardless, your body has to do the work to eject baby regardless. But there are definitely those stories that we see very often where our moms don't want medication and they're nice and aligned, their nervous system's functioning, rock and rolling. And those are a lot of the stories that we do here. It's beautiful.
Very cool. That's interesting. Something that don't really get to have those conversations on and to really think about. And I think chiropractic work is just amazing as it is. And so you also do pediatric chiropractic work, correct? Or early childhood work. So are you actually like cracking babies?
This is the
and like toddlers?
So we see them. Yesterday I had a babe on the table, 2 days old. So we see them as early as possible, honestly, as early as mom can bring them in or dad. And no cracking is going on. First of all, babies' little spines, they're not even able to crack yet. We compare the pressure we would use to adjust them as the pressure we would use testing an avocado at a grocery store.
Okay.
So that even I tell our parents, I'm like, honestly, that is even a little aggressive. We're even more gentle than that. So it's what we call sustained contact on these little babies. So there's no twisting, there's no turning, there's just literally holding their little spines in whatever segment it is. And you can almost feel that subluxation or that interference in the system melt away. It is so beautiful, but it's so important to get them checked right from the beginning because birth is so hard regardless on how beautiful it is, right? So vaginal C-section, really fast, really slow, regardless on how it is, it's hard work coming into the world. And there's a lot of twisting and turning going on. Again, regardless on if there's assistance or not. And if we leave those interferences in their system, one, that's when we see things like colic, reflux, sleep issues, constipation, ear infections. So checking them from the beginning, letting their system flow really easy, brain to body, really, really, really is cool. It's a pretty cool situation. We see a lot of head rotation preferences, and then ultimately we're like, okay, let's check that upper cervical spine because that's a rotation bone, right? Mom's like, oh, he'll only feed on the left. Well, that's not supposed to happen. And then you see them start to feed on the right, and it's pretty cool because babies' bodies are so smart. Their little brains are so smarter than we give them credit for. And if it hurts to turn to the right, they're not going to turn to the right. Does that make sense?
100%.
So checking them as soon as we can is ideal so that they can grow and develop at ease.
Yeah, no,
that's their job.
It makes a lot of sense, right? And I ran into that a lot with like early childhood, like toddlers, when you get to that T-ball age kind of thing, where it's like other parents are just like, oh, well, because I coached T-ball for a few years while my daughter's doing T-ball and rookies and stuff like that. So I got to work with this age a lot, even through work and then through fun as well. And one thing that I was always told is like, well, you're just basically herding cats. And it's like, no, I'm here to coach them and teach them baseball kind of thing. I'm not just herding cats. They have the ability to be taught these skills. They have the ability to do these things. They have the ability to learn how to throw a ball the right way, to try to catch a ball. The catching is really hard. That's a very fine, gross motor skills right there.
Absolutely.
To swing a bat, to hit a ball, like they have the ability to do it, and they can learn how to do it well if they're taught how to do it well. They just have to be given a chance. And the thing with babies too is like, oh well, baby's only feeding on one side but not the other side. I feel like it's very easy for the mom to just be like, oh well, something's wrong with me then. Something's wrong with the left is the good side, but the right is
totally.
There's something wrong with the right then. Well, no, baby couldn't just hurt. I mean, you try being stuck for 9 months in a little ball kind of thing.
Totally.
And literally have your spinal cord and your head and everything develop as in a little ball. But essentially, if they're facing when they're in the womb, like, yes, the left is probably going to be more accessible to them. Just kind of thinking of like how they face and whatnot, like anatomy and 3D scans, things like that. Like, yes, the left is going to be really easy because they're not going to be turning and trying to look out of your stomach.
Right. That's exactly right.
Look inward. So.
And then you get the different stories, like, was baby breech? You know what I mean? That makes a huge difference in their positioning, which again, that's why when we're looking at their systems and we're doing our exams, this is typically a pattern from in utero. We have a lot of the questions of, well, why would a baby need a chiropractor? They're brand new to the world. There's no stress in their life. They're just babies. Well, there's a lot of stress coming into the world.
There's a lot of stress.
There's a lot of stress sometimes in utero too.
Day?
Yeah, exactly. And they feel that. They've known that.
Yeah.
Depending on how pregnancy goes, it could have been a stressful pregnancy. There's a lot of stress there coming into the world and then trying to figure out, oh my goodness, it's so cold out here and now I have to eat what? It's a lot. And their three main jobs are to eat, sleep, and poop. And when there's interferences in their system that are communicating that line of the highway for that communication's interfered with, it's like that makes their three little jobs so much harder. And ultimately the babes that come in and the moms they're just stressed out and they're what do we do, and everybody's bopping them around everywhere, and just to kind of see them, wow, we slept last night, wow, my baby seems so much happier, he's no longer called the fussy baby of the friend group. You can see the power really turn on in their eyes too. And I think that it's so important. It doesn't have to be a miserable experience for everyone. And it's beautiful. It's honestly the best job in the world. That's what we say every single day, living the dream. It's really a beautiful thing.
No, that's really cool. And I think it's important to realize that too, like that stress aspect of it. Like if there's stress throughout the pregnancy, whether coming and the mom's feeling that stress neurologically just goes to the baby too. Like they're not going to understand it and things like that, but it's just neurologically going there. So there's already going to be brain waves of stress. There's already going to be like wire connections of stress. Think of it as like, for like the listener who may not fully understand this concept. Think of it as like your power box in your garage, right? Your breaker box. And then all these breaker boxes, this breaker box connect to all these wires, and then all these wires send electric currents throughout your house. So if you turn one off, then the electric current stops to your fridge. As soon as you turn back on, it powers back to there, right? If there's any disruptions of that, it affects your fridge. Okay, so the mother is the breaker box. The wires are the literal womb are the wires, so the baby, and the baby's the fridge in this, right? And so any stress the mom feels transfers to the baby in some way, shape, or form. Just like the things that she eats, the nutrients do, the stress, the love, the good things, all the things transfer to the baby in some way, shape, or form. So it's really important to just remember that and to understand that in a sense too. Like baby can come out stressed, and you try, if you were abducted by aliens and you woke up in an environment that you don't know, you don't recognize, you're not in a safe, dark, warm space anymore. Now it's a little cold. Now you have different textures on your body. You're dry. You're very dry. And, now you're wearing a diaper and all these things. It would be kind of overwhelming. It would be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what we call imprints, right? Like birth imprints or pregnancy imprints.
That's the word
really
I was
does
looking for.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. That was amazing. And honestly, that's one of the big reasons why it's so important for us to get moms under care, because their nervous system, of course about the alignments. Of course, that's why a lot of people are like, I want my pelvis aligned for birth. Beautiful, but we need your nervous system functioning and we need you at ease so that your stress levels can be maintained. And to be honest, that's why it's really important for us to get dads in too. I mean, that's one of our favorite things that happens is when dads come in and they realize too that their stress levels also will affect the baby, and their health and wellness also affects that. And I think one of my favorite stories from the year is we had a mom come in pregnant very early in her pregnancy. About midway through, the dad started getting care. And he was like, I want this nervous system care that everybody's talking about. We're like, perfect, get on the table. It must have been 12 hours after his baby was born. He was back on the table. He was like, I need to get my nervous system tuned up. I'm a new dad. And I was like, wow, this is powerful. You know what I mean? The dad is, recognizing his role in this, and which is huge. Obviously mom just gave birth. They came in shortly after they got dismissed from the hospital, but it was cool. We were kind of like, wow, this guy gets it. You know what I mean? He understands that his system is also such a big role in his family, and he's on the table 12 hours after his baby was born. It's pretty cool.
Well, no, it's important for men to realize like the stress that you feel impacts the mother, and it impacts you, and it impacts your baby. Especially as a new dad, like that's a really hard situation to be in. Like I became a dad at 22. I was also super young when I became a dad. Like I was literally 3 months past my 22nd birthday, and super young. And so, like, I don't even have a full frontal cortex kind of thing. I don't even have a fully developed nervous system, fully developed brain, let alone. And here I am raising a kid, or trying to raise a kid. And I've learned since, gotten better with time. I'm pretty sure my frontal cortex is almost fully developed now, many, many years later. But so it's important to, like I was saying, like it's really important to recognize, like I need help too, or this affects everybody else. If I'm not, put together, if my nervous system's all out of whack, then the baby can feel that, right? Like babies feel a lot, right? They feel
100%.
Like because they can't communicate, so their body just naturally, like if you couldn't communicate, you're going to be able to pick up on other senses, right? You're going to be able to pick up on breathing differently. You're going to be able to pick up on like footsteps differently, or body language differently. The heartbeat, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna pick up on these things. It's kind of like in Avatar: The Last Airbender with the what's her name? The little blind girl that's from the Earth Kingdom that teaches Aang how to be an Earthbender, but whatever. But it's a good analogy here because like she's blind, right? But she's one of the best Earthbenders because she focuses so much on the vibration, and she can use her other senses to power, her bending ability to make her very unique to where she can anticipate it before you because she's that in tune with her body, that in tune with her system, that in tune with the ground around her. I think it's like a really good example here because babies are the same way. They're just very in tune with you as a parent to understand like, okay, kind of thing. And I think that carries for our kids throughout their lives where they're just very in tune with their parent and they're able to be like, okay, I can see that dad's a little off right now. Maybe I need to be a little bit more gentle. Maybe I need to be a little bit more loving, and they're able to understand that it's just an instinct that we have as people.
It's special. It's really, truly special.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And it's everybody, that comes through our doors, obviously, we're the pediatric perinatal duo, totally. However, they're like, well, could I get under care? And we're like, yeah, we see dads. I see rugby players. You know what I mean? I'm like, everybody is welcome. We just specialize in this, but everybody get on our table, grandma, grandpa, cousins, teens. Those are some of our favorites too, are just the adolescents, the changing through puberty situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? School is a lot on their little system. So it's, of course, we're a pediatric perinatal, and that sounds like babies and moms, and it is, and it's beautiful. And we have a carousel of pregnant bellies and babies coming through all day, but intermittently we see the dads, we see the athletes, we see the kids that are just like, oh, I had a rough day at school. I think one of our favorite connections that we see are just kids that they'll take a tough fall at school, or they're feeling stressed, or whatever the case is, and they'll tell their parents they need to go to the chiropractor. And it's like, wow, you know what I mean? They take a fall and they're like, I don't need a Band-Aid. I don't need to go to my I need to go to the chiropractor. It's like, they're getting it. You know what I mean? They get it, that ultimately the power that made the body heals the body, but they just need a little facilitation in that. And that's where we come in and we do our thing. But it's pretty cool. I could yap about it all day, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, no, and I think chiropractic care is really great. Like even my oldest daughter, like when I just think it's so funny. Like she'll wake up and if her neck hurts a little bit, she's like, my neck hurts. I think I need to go to the chiropractor. I'm like, no, I think you just slept wrong, honey. I don't think we need to do all that. It's like,
So
my back.
They know what's good for them.
I'm like, we're not going to the chiropractor, honey. You're not. You can still walk. I literally just saw you run. I think you're okay. I really think you're okay this time. We're not going to do that. But yeah, no. So I'm really big on chiropractic care. I think it's great. So big. I really enjoy seeing my chiropractor. When I need it, kind of thing, getting things right. Helping kind of do some of those releases, things like that. I don't get as many cracks, but I get a lot more like releases and nerve work and releases some of those like pent up like nerves, things like that. So my chiropractor is really great at that. But so as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk about your personal health journey because I think it's a really powerful one to hear, and I love sharing stories and whatnot. So you have struggled with PTOS. You can say it the technical terms since you're a doctor, and you learn how to say those technical terms.
Yep.
But you found relief through chiropractic care. So can you share more about your journey with POTS and a little bit about what it is, how it's affected you, and how it's really influenced your career and what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, it's pretty much the main influence on this direction of my life and taking the route towards chiropractic. When I was about 16 or 17 years old, I started just intermittently passing out, just once a day, sometimes multiple times a day. And that's what POTS is. It's postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So what that is, it's the change in posture, that orthostatic change in your system. Basically, your blood pressure will drop, and then kind of like you were talking about earlier, kind of cut off all the electricity, and your system needs a reset, so you'll just pass out. So not ideal for any human to have that going on in their life. And so I dealt with that for years, truthfully, years. I did the MRIs, I did, the brain studies and the suggestions of maybe I'm having brain seizures, maybe I have a tumor somewhere. So I'm going through all these different tests with my parents, and everything comes up clear. Nobody has a real answer. And finally somebody's like, let's call it POTS, postural orthostatic. That's what it is. And it got to the point where it's pretty dangerous, right? I'm in college and passing out all the time. My husband, but my boyfriend at the time, was traveling heavily with rugby then too. So I was home a lot by myself, and a cardiologist recommended a service dog. And that is my dog, Betsy. She is beautiful. She is perfect. She is an angel. So she's a trained medical alert service dog. So she could tell me before I passed out, which made it safer for me to at least make my way to the ground so I didn't hit my head, because obviously that could turn bad pretty fast. So I kind of just progressed a little bit through the years with that. And my husband, we moved to Atlanta, and my husband played for the Atlanta professional team at the time. And one of his teammates had just graduated chiropractic school, and he's fantastic. And my husband went to him. He just got adjusted all the time, rugby player, right? He's in multiple car crashes essentially a week playing rugby.
Yeah,
and we were sitting, I remember sitting in a parking lot one day, and he's just looking at me. He's like, your neck looks weird. And I was like, okay, just like, what do you mean? He's like, just go see Dr. Jamie. He's like super insecure. I was like,
You try to talk
I
dirty
was
to
like,
me or
what weird?
something? Like, wow.
And there was there was nothing that looked weird about it. It was probably just my terrible posture at the time. And so I was like, okay, super insecure. Let me go see Dr. Jamie. And that's why I went to see him. And then I started getting adjusted multiple times a week and stopped passing out. Essentially have not passed out since. And I was like, hey, Dr. Jamie, this is kind of crazy, but I haven't passed out in a while. And he's like, just kind of like, because he gets it. He's like, that makes sense, whatever. And I was like, okay. We were going through care a little further. And then I'm asking him questions like, how do you know what to adjust? How do you know where to adjust, how to adjust, which direction it needs to go? And then kind of tying into my questions with the POTS situation, he's like, you just need to go back to school and learn. And I was like, okay, fair enough.
So had you already completed like your undergraduate studies or postgraduate studies at this time?
Yep, I had just finished. I was at the time working for Coca-Cola's headquarters, which is hilarious now for me. But I was at the time working at Coca-Cola's headquarters as an exercise physiologist.
Okay.
And so I was getting adjusted and I was like, oh my goodness, I never thought about being a chiropractor. That sounds like a pretty big leap. It's a pretty big life decision to do.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
an intense program. I'm telling you, it is an incredibly intense program. And I was like, you know what? If I could just change one POTS patient's life, right? Then it's worth it. Because now we joke that my dog she's a washed up service dog, but she honestly is. Like she goes everywhere with us because we're obsessed with her, but not because I need her. We don't put her in her vest or anything. And so I was like, if I could just change one person's life, it's worth it, to be honest. And then as I started kind of going through the first few years or first few months really of school, I was like, pediatric chiropractic, that's interesting. I didn't even know you could adjust pregnant women, and because I was a kid, I nannied for my whole life. I was a babysitter as young as I can remember. I was very young when I saw the birth of my two nieces in the room. It was like, I was like, this is amazing. I had the pregnant Barbie dolls. And I was like, well, I do love kids. I do love pregnancy, but what is it about, kind of? And I started to put together how different could my life have been if my mom was adjusted, right? How different could my birth outcome have been? How different could my infancy have been? I was a really sick kid. I had all the ear infections. I had strep throat, the flu, all the weird allergies. Like when I started to put together kind of how different my life could be, I was like, this is where I need to go. I need to go in and really dive headfirst. And the power of starting chiropractic care so young, simply because, at the end of the day, how grateful am I to be where I am, to have the journey that I've had. I would not change Miss Betsy for the world. I mean, the pot situation, the passing out was not ideal, but I would do it all over again to meet that sweet girl. Not that I would change anything, but it's hard to wonder, right? How different could my childhood have been? How much school would I have not missed? How many ear infections could I have avoided? And knowing what I know now, it's like a no-brainer. I know that my life could have been a lot different. So it's important for me to kind of have switched gears and be like, this is what I want to focus on, because I really think, I think that that's how we change the world, is from the beginning of the life, and it's special. So yeah, it took me a few different pivots in life to kind of come to where I am in my career, but it's beautiful. It's incredible. I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful to Dr. Jamie to be able to walk in a grocery store and, not be terrified that I'm going to faint at any moment, to be able to drive, to be able to be independent again is really important. But of course, it's hard to not wonder, could this have been avoided? Ultimately, I know it could have been, because the alignment in my neck was not right. You know what I mean? That first bone in my spine was ultimately kind of pinching up a little blood flow to my brain, and that's how that happened. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty interesting long journey, but a beautiful one at that.
That's really cool. And so with having pot, when you were in the thick of it, so you mentioned that now you can drive, you can be independent, things like that. So you didn't really have that independency through like college, through postgraduate, through your relationship. And so there was like a lot of, so how did you navigate that? So you had Betsy, but try to navigate being, young in college, getting your degrees, starting your career with Coca-Cola, being on the road with your husband, moving places, because,
Yeah.
professional athletes, they move a lot. And
for the week.
yeah. And so, like, with that all tied in, like, what were, like, the difficulties? How did you overcome those, or, like, work through them and, like, work through these, like, along the way? Like, I'm just really curious.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Honestly, before I got Betsy, it was just like, it was terrifying, truly, truly just scary and honestly pretty embarrassing, right? It draws a lot of attention when it does happen. In undergrad too, I also played two sports, soccer and rugby. Made it very made it very difficult to do both of those as well. But honestly, I didn't really have any good skills, right? And think about it too, when that's going on or that's in the back of your mind, how stressful that is. The fear of passing out every day is really intense on a system. Yeah, I mean, we paid it. My athletic trainers in undergrad were amazing. They're incredible. They kept up with it as much as they could. There's nothing that they could have avoided. My very early, I can't remember if I was a freshman or sophomore when Betsy came to the world. I got her as a baby. We trained her. She was going to school. I was going to school at the same time. So funny. But once she was only like 6 months old when she was really able to start alerting me. So that came in handy. My husband, my boyfriend at the time, was fantastic at making sure I had all the sodium snacks and things like that to raise my blood pressure when we could manage it. But honestly, it was very stressful. I can't describe it any other way than just really stressful. Really, I was 8.5 hours away from my family. It's not like I could go home on the weekends when he was gone or whatever the case was. It was stressful. I had a really good friend in undergrad who she has type 1 diabetes, and she ended up getting the service dog for that too. So that was cool. We kind of had that little community. But yeah, honestly, it was very hard to manage. And Betsy came and kind of saved the day and took the pressure off a lot of people and took the stress off of my family, took the stress off of my husband when he would go to different parts of the world. And that was beautiful. And that's why. I mean, I joke, but she is the light of my life. She totally really helped in so many ways. When we did move to Atlanta after graduation, Betsy came to Coca-Cola every day. She did her job there too. And then I basically forced her into retirement. So that was an interesting process. She was kind of confused at first, but she's handling it well.
Yeah. So she's still trained though. She still has all the training essentially.
Yep.
So if you
yeah.
If in the off chance, like God forbid, that there is regression in any way, shape, or form, which it doesn't sound like there is, then she's locked in, ready to go.
She is locked in. It's almost to the point where, because she detects heart rate, there is no sleeping in the morning. So anytime I even think about waking up, she wakes up. So that's how in tune she is. Honestly, it doesn't take much for her to notice a change. And so it's crazy. It's very crazy. It's
what kind of dog is she?
She's a white lab golden retriever combination.
That's so cool. Dogs are so cool.
She is something special. But yeah, she's still very much so on top of her game, even with those slight little changes. It's pretty cool.
So she's probably what, like 10 or so?
Yeah, almost 9.
Almost 9, 10.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so sweet. I bet she's just so bored all day.
She is so terribly bored. She is still going through the retirement process.
She's probably real confused once you started getting care and started getting things better. She's probably like,
well, now she gets adjusted too. So
wait, dogs can get adjusted?
There is, so dog chiropractic, they have to go through the same schooling that any chiropractor has to go to. They just have to do a bunch of extra chiropractic work for animals, because animals have different spines. So Betsy is consistently adjusted. So I think she gets it. At least I like to hope so. And I am in fact not Betsy's chiropractor. She has her own chiropractor because I am not an animal chiropractor. But she gets adjusted quite often too.
I didn't even know that was a thing. So when you guys go places or when you go out, is she still leashed, or is she like just kind of there next to you where it's very minimal, where she just kind of stays next to you, like she's very just trained? Like when you were at Coca-Cola, I'm just curious, was she like,
oh yeah,
like around just like your waist on like a leash, or was she just like next to you?
She was in her vest. There was a leash there in case I needed to snag her up, but she pretty much just followed me everywhere. Okay. Just literally like a little shadow. She would just follow me everywhere. She would just sit down when I would work with clients. She would just sit there and watch. A very, very cute addition, I will admit. But yeah, she was great. She did her thing. Now she definitely has a little bit of an attitude now. She's definitely made her mark in our family, but she still does fantastic.
She's getting old. I had an old golden retriever 2 years ago. I think she ended up living until she was about 12 years old. she got a little weird cyst down by her groin area, and then she started having seizures, and then you know, the rest is history after that. So she's been gone for about 3 years now. This November it'll be about 3 years. So but I remember after she turned about 9, she was fat and sassy, and she sauntered and she shook her booty, and she was still so fun. She was still so fun, but she was just living. You know, she just laid around, ate her food,
It's fun.
snuggled, left her fur everywhere.
People still think she's a puppy, and I'm like, she's not. But the white eyes are starting to come out, but she still very much so acts very frisky and young. But
yeah, that's how you know
she's
when
quite adjusted.
when the snout starts to turn like a lighter color, and around the eye starts to turn a lighter color. It's like, man, you're getting old.
Break my heart.
Kind of thing. And so after Betsy, you know, assuming this is a conversation since he's 9, are you planning on getting another service dog just to have and to train?
Cute. No, I'm not. Honestly, it's a lot. The service dog training is intense. It's a lot of money too, as it should be, right? It's a very important job. But no, I'm not. It's going to be hard. We're still we're so connected to her. She's obviously played such a special role in our life that sometimes we're like, I don't even know if we're going to be able to get any dog.
Yeah, well, so you saw plenty years before that. I mean, she's barely 9, so you still got plenty of years.
She's barely turning that corner. Like I said, she is frequently adjusted. She is frisky. She is healthy. So we're rolling with it.
Yeah, she really has nice. Still, she's probably just barely halfway through life at this point.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
With how well taken care of she is, that's really cool. So I also want to ask, just as a last kind of talking point here before we get into some of the fun questions. You have done some mentorship under Dr. Drew Rubin, honing your skills in examining and adjusting neurodiverse populations.
Yeah.
I'm curious because I personally work with a lot of neurodiverse populations. I work with a lot of kids with autism. I work with a lot of kids with behavioral health issues, with ADHD, and other neurodiversities as it is. Those are just the 2 most common for me is autism and ADHD. How is that different for you working with neurodiverse children and providing chiropractic care to them?
Very interesting question. So ultimately, our care is similar, right? The way we adjust them is similar that we would a neurotypical child. The process can be different because of what the kids bring to the table, right? So a lot of times too, it takes a little bit of extra time to build that trust, right? A new place. A lot of times by the time the neurodivergent kids come to us, they've been through so many different providers that may or may not be poking them or, running tests on them and things like that are not always the most comfortable situation. So they're already a little apprehensive. However, it's really, really cool to see the changes in something as simple as the trust after that first adjustment, because similar to infants, right? Like we were speaking about earlier, because sometimes there's communication errors or just kind of a fight going on in their system and in their body, they know what's good for them. Right. So when they feel and see the restoration start to happening in their nervous system, they want more of that. Right. They want that power to turn on. So it varies a little different because typically when things are going on like that in the system, we need to see them more frequently in the beginning, right, to make that change faster and help sustain that. The difference, truly one of the only difference in my opinion, is just whether or not they lay on the table or not. And that is okay, right? So we're trained in so many different ways to adjust on the go. Honestly, I mean, we have had to meet kids in their car and get it done there. We still, even neurotypical kids sometimes have to adjust on their parents. So kind of meeting them where they're at, their comfortability levels, it can take a little bit of extra time, but honestly, in my opinion, there's not much of a difference. And again, we have the neurotypical kids that are crazy, don't want to get on the table, and we're like, come on, you want a sticker? It's kind of a similar situation, but the neurodivergent kids really, really, really benefit from this because what's going on in their systems, whether it's autism, ADHD, whatever the case is, their brain and their bodies are not communicating properly. And so their system is just kind of stuck in that fight or flight mode, a lot of what's going on. And so when they do recognize the ease, they want more of it. And it's beautiful. It's truly beautiful. And then eventually they just start and they just come lay on the table and everything's good. It's so amazing. Dr. Drew Rubin actually was my mentor as well as the other chiropractor in our office mentor. So we have a lot of Dr. Drew Rubin flowing through our veins, and he's a really special chiropractor in Atlanta, and it makes a massive impact on the community there. Incredible.
Very, very cool. So have you seen it where like with a kid to, let's say, like moderate to severe autism or like moderate to severe like ADHD symptoms? Does the chiropractor care, can it help, or has it helped that you've seen alleviate some of those symptoms, some of those markers,
Absolutely.
to take it from like the severe maybe down to moderate, maybe from moderate down to more mild kind of thing?
But we've seen both of those.
Okay.
So, I mean, sometimes it's as simple as, right, like when the system's all fired up and let's say an autistic child and they can't go to sleep, right? Sometimes it's as simple as their parents are not coming in saying they're sleeping, right? Which, if you're an autism parent, right, that's typically a full-time job. That's a huge win. We have seen young autism or a young autistic child come in that just, mom's never gotten a hug before and now will hug mom, or mom has never heard the child's voice. Now we're starting to pin together words. And I'm not saying that this happens on every case, but I am saying we've seen it quite a few times where we are now hearing words come out, right? And again, it's like, it's nothing more than their system is able to function the way it needs to function. And of course, it's going to take time. And of course, we're still working with these patients. And of course, it's a lifetime thing, because my chiropractic journey is a lifetime thing. My husband's, he is on the table minimum twice a week. My dog is adjusted, right? So especially when we're kind of fighting an uphill battle of something like autism or ADHD, of course, it's going to be a process. But we see some really incredible changes that you just want to write it on a billboard,
That's really cool. No, I
Cool.
believe it too. It makes sense. So sounds like there's some links that need to be explored here. Deeper
Absolutely.
to when it comes to chiropractic care and to neurodivergency, to how they can work together, to how you can use one to help alleviate the other, and
Absolutely.
how they can be paired together. It sounds like there's some more work that needs to be done here.
Yeah.
Because it definitely makes sense. When you align the nervous system and you get the nervous system right and you unblock those things that are blocked, whether it's the blood flow, whether it's the nerves, whether they're entangled, whether they just need help to regulate. I would be really interested to see more like deeper like scientific studies on this, and to see it done purely with like chiropractic care, to see the differences that are there. Maybe I'm not going to say it's going to be a cure, but if you can alleviate symptoms from severe to moderate, or from moderate down to mild, or from mild down to 0 to 5, then those are all big progresses there. Those are all big alleviations on the family that can help give a child a normal life, going from severely impacted to moderately impacted. That's life changing. That is absolutely life changing for an autistic person.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, right, all chiropractors, we know this, right? And that when we get people on our provider teams, then they start to get it too. And there's people, especially in Washington, that are much more open to what we do. There are some really amazing studies out there. Are some of them censored? Sure, right? Because it's hard to, when everybody's healthy, it's hard to make money in the medical system, right? So there's things that are censored out there. However, there's some really beautiful studies through the ICPA, through other really, really renowned, what's the word for it? Case studies, things like that. There's some really beautiful ones out there that are kind of, like you said, one, ignored, or two, potentially censored. But there's some really good docs that are working on case studies all the time. The ICPA is filled with these stories. You just have to find them, but they're there. I promise you, they're there, and we're all working towards more of those studies.
Yeah, and I think those stories being there, it sucks that those things are censored, that they're not like more public, that they're not more like common knowledge, things like that. And I think there's more of an opportunity when everyone is healthy for medical treatment, because now it's like, okay, now you have everybody coming in all the time for just routine follow-up, and you can fit a lot more follow-ups into a day than you can emergency, and having to respond to crises and things like that. So I think if everyone was healthy, if we had a generally more healthy country, then providers are still, they're probably busier. There's less like emergencies, but then there's also more time to treat those emergencies too. It's like, oh, well, now I really get to hone in, and I get to hone in on my specialty, and you yourself, you get to pick 10 clients, and you get to do a study, and like, I'm going to do 5 clients that have POTS. I'm going to do 5 clients that have, autism, that are, 16, 18, and I'm going to study them. I'm going to do these treatments on them and whatnot. And now I get to, have a solid contribution. But now there's just not time for that right now. It's just not where we're at right now in our country. Hopefully we get to that point with medicine and things like that. So
I really hope so. I really, really hope so. That's a dream. That's a vision. I think all of our hope is that just everybody jumps on their wellness journey and that we have more well people, right? Of course, we see the cases of constipation, ear infection. Of course, we see those, but our goal is to get everybody to a wellness position to where they're just being checked for interferences, right? That's what I do. I just get checked. Of course, I used to be the kid that passes out. I used to be, the service dog girl, but like now I just get checked, and that itself is beautiful. And that's what I can only hope for every human being, is that we're all just living optimally, functioning at our highest potential and just getting checked,
Yeah. And that's the best case scenario, of course.
Yeah.
That we get to just be there and we get to just be checked. All right. Any thoughts in regards to anything we talked about today with chiropractic care, with the different kinds of care, different topics that we explored a little bit through our conversation? Any thoughts on those to wrap that part of our conversation up today?
Honestly, no. I think we really, really covered it all. We covered all the really important things, and I really just appreciate you giving chiropractic the platform for this. This is really special.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Like, I use chiropractic care. I love my chiropractic care. It's helped me immensely. It helped me to the point where it's like I was hurting so bad in one area that my chiropractor was like, you should probably go see your primary care and double check that that's not a hernia. Double check that's not something more and stuff like that. So it's helped me, make sure I was healthy in other ways and make sure I was like safe in other domains too, and really helped me like slow down and reevaluate and adjust different areas of like my life and my day-to-day habits. No pun intended there. So yeah, big believer in chiropractic work. So with that, let's do some fun questions here. Just kind of wrap us out of this interview a little bit. I don't even like to call them interviews out of our conversation here, but you are an avid supporter of the Seattle Seawolves rugby team. So first off, do the Seawolves play at, why am I thinking not Quest anymore, CenturyLink?
They play, okay, I sound like not a good rugby wife. Starfire. In Seattle, or in Tukwila.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Starfire.
I'm like, where do I know? So does your husband play for them?
He does.
Yeah. That's cool.
That makes sense.
Yeah, now it's all connecting.
Yep.
But you also play rugby, and so you've been into rugby for such a long time. So what is like your top like memory from attending like all these rugby games, being a rugby wife, and also playing rugby, because you played collegiately too, correct?
Correct. Yep.
So what's like a couple of your like top memories from like your rugby, I guess, career in itself, or just experience being a rugby wife?
Yeah. Some really special ones, to be honest. I think one of my favorite of all times is seeing my husband play for the USA team for the first time. We were in Chicago. Where do the Bears play? You know that stadium?
Chicago.
Yeah.
They play it. What is it called?
What is that place called?
I'll look it up. I'll get it for you.
That was his first game in that stadium with the national team, and Soldier Field. Yeah, Soldier Field. That is one of my favorite memories, was just watching him suit up for the national team for the first time. He played almost the entire game, and for his position, that's not common. He's one of the bigger guys on the field, and he did so amazing. It's always going to be one of my favorite memories. A couple years ago, when he was living in New York and playing for New York, they won the MLR championship, and I got to go see that, leave school for a few days and go see that, and that was pretty special too. So there's a lot of really cool memories of just seeing him live so passionately for what he does, and the culture for rugby is just very different. So it's a very, very special culture that you can't really explain unless you're a part of it, but the community's pretty cool.
That's really cool. What position does he play? I'm just curious.
He plays loose head prop.
Loose head
and
prop.
If needed, tight head props.
Is that front row or
front row?
So
a big part of his job is eating.
So forwards, front row, correct? Found him.
Yeah.
Found him.
Not a small guy.
No, prop 6'2", Oklahoma.
Yeah, he is up about 20 pounds.
Dude's huge.
Yeah.
No, it's really cool. I'm looking at, Pacific Challenge in 2017, 18. Play for the national team, so I think that's all really cool. That's really cool.
Yeah. It's different. It's
Uh,
interesting.
that's so cool when you get to represent your country and you get to see that and get to be a part of it, kind of thing too.
Amazing. Yeah, it's
Like
crazy.
that's so cool. What's your funny story that you have with Betsy?
Funny story with Betsy. One of my favorite little stories of just showing her personality. So she's obviously a lab golden retriever mix. So she's a we always joke that she might have been a part of like Michael Phelps's family in a past life or something. Like she is a swimmer. And when we were in undergrad, so she was still very young, I had a huge pond behind my house. And so we would take her off. And again, she's very well trained, even at this point. And we would take her off the leash, go to the bathroom, whatever, and expecting her to, pay attention to our commands. And you would just turn and just down the pond. This little white dog just in the pond, just swimming around and just thinking about me trying to get to class and trying to get my dog out of the pond was just, I'm sure, the humans passing by were just probably like, there she goes again. That's like one of my favorite memories of us just trying to get her all the time.
So you're taking a wet dog to class.
Correct. And just like, it wasn't a clean pond. It wasn't let's go swimming. It was like snapping to her. Like, it was so terrible, but that's one of my favorites.
I love that. But your professors were so excited when you brought wet Betsy to class.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Wet, dirty Betsy to class.
Yeah.
Let's see. Do you have a favorite spot in Seattle with all of its natural beauty to like go and unwind or to go and like walk and relax? Like, do you have like a favorite like spot area that's like your like go-to?
Yeah. We really, really like Rattlesnake Ledge. That's like one of our favorite. I mean, rightfully so. It's so beautiful, but it's moderate. I'm not sore the next day going to work. Beautiful views, and at the end, of course, Betsy always gets treated with a nice swim in the lake. That's one of my favorite places to go. And yeah, we're frequent flyers at Rattlesnake.
Love it. I guess last question here. So after with all this experience and things like that, do you have any advice that you would offer to like a young dad or a young mother, especially those with newborns or expecting parents, about supporting like their family's health and wellness journey? So it's like one piece of like final advice for like the young parents out there becoming and just starting out their like parenthood journey.
Yeah, find your team, right? So find who you trust and find a team that supports you in all your wants and needs. I think a lot of times we see the parents that are dismissed, right? Or they'll grow out of it conversations, and find the people that you trust. I think the over-encompassing piece of advice is like, go get checked by a nervous system based chiropractor. Get the wellness journey going. And that is my advice to everyone on the planet.
I love it. Well, thank you so much, Mariah. Dr. Mariah. Sorry. I feel like we're on a first name basis now, and I have to throw the doctor in there.
Totally.
But it's important. But I'm so appreciative of you sharing your insight today, your experiences with us, your own journey, and being able to touch on these topics. So they're so important to you, to me, and to a lot of people. It's been really cool to learn about the importance of chiropractic care from like your perspective, and learn more about perinatal care and pediatric chiropractic as well. And so for the listeners who want to learn more or get in touch with you, what is the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, I think just Instagram's the classic, right? So at Dr. Mariah Wenglowski, that's a hard name, but there's only one of us, so you can't miss. Or you can always follow our office. We're always dropping some really, really great content about the different cases we see and the different presentations that we see at Tree of Life Seattle on Instagram as well.
Perfect. Well, Mariah, I so appreciate your time. I appreciate our listeners for tuning in today and listening to us. So whether you're over on Spotify, Apple, or maybe you're on YouTube watching this, thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you go and do the things that you can to show love for the podcast. You go and leave 5 stars, leave a review, subscribe, like, follow, leave a comment, whatever you can do to support the podcast is great. It really, truly helps. This is podcast kitty. Her name's Blue. She just jumped up on my lap. And so she's fantastic. So yeah, like I was saying, everyone go and do the things you can to support the podcast, and we'll join you back here next time. And until then, you guys take care, stay safe, and have a good one.
Thanks, Jay.